So here's a website I made for a small business. It's a simple CRUD application, an expense tracker that tracks expenses by category and subcategories. So we could add utilities, let's say cable, and 13th is fine. And let's say for business, maybe 200, that sounds about right, sure. A couple things happen here. We had an animation at the bottom for the running total. And then this is a C3 graph that I'm using, and then a card here that is fully editable. So what I mean by that is if I add another subcategory, let's say water, I can come over here and click cable, and now I have cable and water showing up, so I can edit that. Right now there's only one category. For the total, I can switch that to, let's say, 175, and the graph and running total updates accordingly. The date, I can change that to, let's say, the 14th, and then it updates here. Okay, so adding another category, let's say transportation. And we're in the DC area, so she takes the metro. And how about the 20th? $10 ride. Okay, so a couple things here. The running total updated, and we have some color coordination. Same thing here with the legend. Again, you can update any of these. We could switch from transportation to utilities, and the subcategories select element updates as well. So we could say cable. Obviously, that's not $10. Let's say 100. And the running total updates. So since it's the same category, they are calculated together. So switching that back to add some more color here. If I try to add this amount, I've got some feedback here. So I try to add the expense. This flashes red, indicating that I have to add a subcategory. So let's say Sarah. Right, and then we add the expense. So now that this list is getting longer, you can imagine as it gets longer and longer, it'll start to scroll, and instead of scrolling all the way to the bottom after a month's period of expenses, we can just hit the oldest button. Okay, so what I've done here is added some more categories and expenses to show that the left side is fixed and the right side is scrollable. And this is what I mean. As it gets longer and longer, it's a little bit easier to just flip the switch here and say, okay, at the beginning of the month, I had these expenses. At the end of the month, I had these expenses. And then everything updates accordingly. And then lastly, at the end of the month, after all of these expenses are calculated, there's a reset button here that the client wanted, so that gets rid of everything. So overall, the client was happy, and that makes me happy.